The sky over Varos 9 was dark and red, like it was always burning. The wind carried the sound of drums, slow, loud, and cold. In the center of the tribal village, a crowd had gathered. Aliens with blue skin, sharp tattoos, and silver eyes stood in a wide circle. They shouted, clapped, and threw dust into the air. Two warriors dragged a girl by her arms. Her name was Elira. Her long white hair was dirty. Her legs were weak. Her silver robe was torn. A strange metal collar was around her neck, glowing red with energy. She was the chosen one, the sacrifice. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. Her face was calm, but her heart beat like thunder. The monster pit waited ahead. The tribe leader, a tall alien with gold armor and glowing fangs, raised his hand. "This girl has broken the code," he shouted. "She refused the high priest. She disobeyed the elders. The great beast shall judge her now." The crowd roared. Elira looked down into the pit. It was deep and dark. No bottom could be seen. Only blackness. The story said the beast inside had no eyes. Only teeth. It lived on fear and flesh. No one survives the pit, they always said. No one ever came back. She was ready for death, but not like this. Without another word, the guards pushed her forward. She fell. The wind rushed past her ears. Her body spun. The red sky vanished above her. The screams faded. She hit the bottom with a crash. Everything went black. When Elira opened her eyes, she saw nothing, only pain. Her back hurt. Her hands were still tied. The glowing collar blinked slowly now, weaker. Then, a sound. Soft. Careful. Human. "Hey," a voice whispered. "You alive?" Elira's eyes widened. She turned her head. A shadow moved nearby. A man stepped into view holding a small torch made from bones and a light crystal. He wasn't from her tribe. His skin was pale. His eyes were green. He had short brown hair and a rough beard. His armor was torn and dirty, but his voice was calm. He was a human. She gasped. "What? Who are you?" He knelt beside her. "Name's Reed. I was dropped in here 2 weeks ago. Didn't expect company." She stared at him. "You're still alive?" "Barely," he said, smiling. "The monster likes to sleep during the day, lucky for us." He cut her ropes with a sharp rock and handed her a small piece of fruit. "Eat," he said. "You'll need strength." Elira took the fruit but didn't eat it yet. "Why? Are you helping me?" Reed shrugged. "I saw you fall. You didn't deserve it." She looked at him carefully. "No one helps anyone here." "I'm not from here," he replied. As she ate, Reed led her through a narrow path between rocks. The walls were covered in claw marks. Bones were scattered across the ground. "Where is the monster?" she asked softly. "Sleeping in the far corner," he answered. "But when it wakes up, it hunts by sound. No eyes, just ears." He pointed to a hollow cave hidden behind rocks. "That's my shelter. Come on." Inside the cave, there was a blanket made from rags, a pile of fruit skins, and a few tools made from bones and scrap metal. "You've built all this?" Elira asked. "I had to. No one's coming to save me." She sat down and held her arms. "They threw me because I said no to a priest." Reed raised an eyebrow. "They kill you for that?" "They say the beast keeps the tribe safe," she said. "So they feed it people." He looked angry. "That's not tradition, that's fear." She nodded slowly. "I was ready to die, but now, I'm not so sure." Suddenly the ground shook. Boom! Dust fell from the cave ceiling. Reed stood quickly. "It's awake." A deep growl echoed through the pit. Heavy footsteps. The sound of stone breaking. Reed whispered, "Don't move. Don't speak." Elira didn't breathe. Outside the cave, something huge passed by. Its body scraped the walls. A long tail dragged behind it. The creature sniffed the air. Then, it stopped. Right in front of the cave. Elira closed her eyes. The beast leaned closer, breathing heavy. Then, it moved on. Silence. Reed let out a long breath. That was close, Elira whispered. I don't want to die here. Reed looked at her with fire in his eyes. Then we find a way out. For a long time, Elira couldn't sleep. She sat near the wall of the small cave, knees pulled to her chest, eyes watching the entrance. Outside, the pit was dark and full of strange sounds, rocks falling, bones cracking, and the deep breath of something massive moving in the shadows. The monster was real, but so was the human. Reed. He sat across from her, sharpening a spear made from bone and scrap metal. The flame from his torch flickered across his face, showing the tired lines beneath his eyes. How long have you lived down here? She asked. Reed didn't look up. 17 days. You count the days? Of course, he replied. Every day I survive means the monster didn't win. Elira hugged herself tighter. My people say no one survives the pit. You're the first. Reed gave a short laugh. Well, they were almost right. I landed on a broken body. It saved my spine. Then I ran, hid in this cave. Elira shivered. I thought you were a ghost, at first. I thought you were the next monster snack, he said, half joking. But you had a face that looked more angry than afraid. She blinked. You saw anger? Yeah, you weren't begging for life. You were ready to fight. That's why I helped. Later, as she rested, Reed quietly placed a small bundle near her. Inside was dried fruit, clean cloth, and a thin blanket. She looked up. You're giving this to me? I've survived alone. But alone gets heavy. Elira didn't know how to reply. No one had ever given her something without a price. You're strange, she said. Reed smiled. I'm human. We're full of surprises. Over the next 2 days, Reed showed her how he had survived. He had mapped out tunnels inside the pit, small cracks where the monster couldn't go. He showed her how to listen to the air before moving, how to cover her scent using pit dust, and how to walk without sound. You move too fast, he said once as they practiced. Elira frowned. Fast is better. Fast is loud, he replied. And loud is death. She tried again, slower, lighter. He nodded. Better. For the first time in her life, Elira was learning not how to follow, but how to stay alive. One morning, they returned to the cave to find something chilling. Message drawn in blood on the wall. One must feed. Reed's jaw tightened. Elira stepped back. It came while we were gone. It's smart, Reed said. And now it knows we're here. She asked quietly, do you think it understands us? He looked into the dark tunnel. I don't think it needs to. Hunger understands everything. That night the monster attacked. It came without warning, smashing into the rock wall outside the cave. Its massive claws tore through stone like paper. Reed grabbed Elira's arm. Run! They sprinted through the tight tunnel, turning left, then right. Behind them, the monster howled. A horrible, bone-shaking sound. They reached a narrow gap and slid inside. The beast tried to follow, but got stuck. Its long claws scraped the stone just inches from Elira's head. She screamed. Reed covered her mouth and whispered, Don't give it the sound it wants. Slowly, the beast backed away, roaring, then silence. In the dark, Elira shook. I thought it had me, she said. Reed looked at her. It almost did. She looked into his eyes. Why are you still helping me? You could have left me behind. I told you, he said softly. Alone gets heavy. I'd rather carry the weight together. Later, back at the cave, Elira asked a question she had kept hidden. Do you think we can really escape? Reed didn't answer at first. Then he turned toward the rock wall, tapped it gently, and said, There's a tunnel, high up. I've seen it open once every few days. Might be a waste chute or a ventilation hatch. If we can reach it. Her eyes lit up. Then there's hope. He nodded. But we need to climb, and the only way up is straight through the beast's den. Silence followed. Then Elira stood up. "Teach me how to fight." Reed smiled. "Now you're sounding human." The pit was colder than usual. A heavy silence covered everything. Even the wind that sometimes whistled through the cracks had stopped. Elira walked behind Reed, each step careful, her foot wrapped in cloth, her breathing slow. They were near, the center of the pit now, a place Reed had only visited once and barely escaped. "I call it the Bone Garden," he whispered. She didn't understand at first, but then they stepped into a wide open space, and she saw it, a field of bones. Skulls, of all shapes, alien, animal, even human, lay in piles. Long bones were stuck in the ground like spikes. Broken armor, torn clothing, and rusted weapons lay scattered. But what chilled her the most was the pattern. The bones weren't thrown around. They were arranged like art. Elira whispered, "It makes nests." Reed nodded. "I think it remembers its kills, like trophies." They walked further. The scent of blood was old but strong. Then Reed stopped suddenly and dropped to a crouch. He motioned with 2 fingers. Movement. Elira followed his gaze. Across the field, a large creature moved between the shadows. It was bigger than she imagined. The monster. Its body was hunched, covered in thick, stone-like scales. Sharp bone plates jutted from its back. Its arms were long and crooked, ending in claws that scraped the rocks. It had no eyes, but its head moved, sniffing, searching. It let out a deep sound, like a growl buried inside thunder. Elira froze. Her heart pounded. Reed touched her arm. "Stay down. Don't breathe hard, it hunts by sound." They crouched behind a stack of skulls. The monster moved closer. Each step made the ground shake. Then, it stopped. Right in front of them, Elira's body was trembling, her mouth dry. One wrong breath and it would find them. The creature raised its head and sniffed again. Then, it roared. The sound was like 1,000 screams in one. Reed's hand slowly reached into his belt. He pulled out a small, round object. "Sound. Grenade," he whispered. "I throw it left, we run right." She nodded, barely moving. Click. He threw. The grenade bounced once, twice, then let out a piercing screech. The monster spun and leapt toward the noise. Reed and Elira bolted in the opposite direction, running through the bones. The beast crashed into the rocks behind them, sending stones flying. They ducked into a narrow crack in the wall, barely big enough for their bodies. Breathing hard, they slid down a short tunnel until they landed in a dark chamber. Reed leaned against the wall, gasping. That was close. Elira didn't answer. She was still shaking. He looked at her. "You all right?" She nodded slowly, then whispered, "I saw it. I really saw it. It's not just a beast." "What do you mean?" Reed asked. "It thinks," she said. "It's not wild. It's cruel. It arranges bones. It marks territory." Reed frowned. "That's worse than a dumb predator." "Yes," she said, "because it enjoys the fear." They rested in the chamber for a while. Reed checked a hidden pouch behind a rock, his small stash of supplies. He handed her a drink pack. "Here." She drank, still pale. Reed spoke quietly. "There's something else I haven't told you." She looked up. "What?" "That tunnel. I mentioned, the one that might lead out. It's above the Bone Garden. The monster sleeps near it." Elira closed her eyes. "That's suicide." "Maybe," Reed said. "But it's the only way. We climb the rock wall during the sleep cycle. We stay quiet. We get out." She stood. "Then we prepare." The next few days were spent training. Reed taught her how to move in total silence, how to balance on narrow rocks, how to use a spear, not to fight, but to distract. They built climbing hooks from bone and old cables. They timed the beast movements. They mapped the shortest path to the wall. Every day, Elira got stronger. Every day, her fear turned into something else, Focus. On the fourth night, they sat near the cave entrance, watching the stars barely visible through the top of the pit. Elira asked, "Why did you come to this planet?" Reed answered, "It was supposed to be a rescue mission. A science team went missing. We found pieces of them. Then the beast found us." He looked at her. "I was the only one left." Elira nodded. "Now we're two." "Maybe that's enough," he said. She smiled, just a little. "Then let's make it count." The time had come. Elira stood beside Reed at the edge of the bone garden, her hands gripping the climbing hook they had crafted from monster bones and braided wire. Her heart thudded like a drum inside her chest. Above them, high up in the stone walls of the pit, a narrow metal hatch blinked once. The waste tunnel. It would stay open for exactly 9 minutes, and then close again for another cycle. That hatch was the only way out. Below them, in the shadows, the monster slept. Reed looked up at the climb. "We start slow," he whispered. "No sound, no slips. If you fall, don't scream. Just hold." Elira nodded, her jaw tight. "And if it wakes?" Reed stared ahead. "Then we make sure one of us escapes." "No," she said firmly. "We both go. Or neither." He looked at her, surprised, but he didn't argue. They had trained for this moment. Every silent step, every careful breath, every beat of fear was now a weapon. They crept out of the tunnel and crossed the bone garden again, this time slower, more silent than ever. The monster was curled in its nest of bones, massive back rising and falling with each breath. Its claws twitched in its sleep. The smell of old death filled the air. Elira didn't flinch. They reached the climb point. The wall was steep, covered in jagged rock and old metal supports. It was slippery, sharp. Reed went first, his boots found, the notches he had marked during the mapping days. His arms pulled strong. He attached the first hook, then the second. Elira followed close behind. Her body moved slow, but steady. Foot, hook, pull, breathe, don't slip, don't look down. 10 feet, out to 20, 30. The wind started to howl faintly from above. That meant the hatch was opening. Reed looked down. "We're halfway." Then a loose stone fell. Clink, clank, clatter. It hit the bone garden floor. Silence. Then a deep sniff. The monster stirred. Reed froze. Elira's hands tightened. They didn't move. Far below, the beast rose slowly. Its head tilted. It sniffed again, then let out a low growl. It began walking toward the wall. Its claws clicked over the stone. It stopped at the base, exactly where they had started climbing. It looked up, though it had no eyes, Elira whispered. "It knows." Reed cursed under his breath. "We need to move, fast." They climbed quicker now, no longer hiding the sound. The beast reached for the wall, scratching, feeling. Then, it began to climb too. The wall shook as its claws tore into the rock. Elira screamed as a metal bar snapped under her. She slipped. Reed caught her wrist with one hand, holding tight with the other. The monster roared below, reaching higher. Reed groaned, pulling her up with every ounce of strength he had. "Climb," he shouted. Elira pushed upward, swinging her foot onto the next hold. They were near the top now. The hatch was open, a bright blue light shining from it like a doorway to heaven. Reed reached it first, grabbed the edge, and turned to help her. She was just below, arms shaking, body scraped and bleeding. The monster's claws slashed just inches below her. Then, the beast leaped. The wall cracked. A boulder flew up, striking Elira's side. She lost her grip. She screamed. Reed's hand shot, down catching her. "Don't you dare fall now," he shouted. Her hand slipped. One finger left. But then she used her other hand, bloody and raw, and grabbed tight. Reed pulled with all his strength. She flew into the hatch just as the timer hit 0. Clang. The door shut. Silence. They lay on the floor of the service tunnel, panting, shaking, alive. Elira coughed and turned to Reed. "We made it," Reed nodded, breathing hard. "Barely." She sat up slowly. "It almost had me. I felt its breath like heat from a storm." He looked at her with quiet pride. "You didn't give up?" "I couldn't," she said. "You were holding me up." He smiled faintly. "That's what humans do." She leaned back and looked at the tunnel ahead, dark but free of monsters. They weren't safe yet, but they had done the impossible, and they had done it together. The tunnel above the pit was silent. Dark metal walls stretched far into the distance, covered in rust and old warning signs in a dozen alien languages. The smell was different here: cold metal, old chemicals, and something else. Power. Elira stood beside Reed, both bruised and bleeding, but breathing. The waste hatch behind them had sealed shut. The pit, the monster, was now far below. They had survived the impossible climb. Now they faced whatever waited above. Reed glanced ahead. "This tunnel leads to the old service lift. If we can reach it, it'll take us to the surface." Elira nodded, but she was already uneasy. "Something's wrong," she whispered. Reed paused. "What do you mean?" She placed her hand on the wall. "The air. It's too clean." He frowned. "You're right. This place should be full of rot." They moved forward carefully. Every footstep echoed. Their weapons, still made from bone and scraps, felt small now. Then they turned the final corner and saw the guards. 6 tribal warriors stood in front of the elevator, fully armored, carrying shock spears and pulse blasters. In the middle stood a tall figure in ceremonial robes. The high priest. Elira froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Reed stepped in front of her. The high priest's silver eyes gleamed with victory. "You made it out alive. Impressive." Reed raised his spear, out of the way, but the guards didn't move. The priest spoke again. "You were never meant to die, Elira. The sacrifice was never about punishment, it was about proving loyalty." Elira's fists clenched. "You threw me into a pit with a monster." "To test your strength," the priest said. "And now, look at you, survivor, warrior, legend." Reed narrowed his eyes. "You watched her suffer. She has been forged in fear," the priest said coldly. "Now she's ready to lead." Elira's voice trembled with rage. "Lead what?" "The next generation of our people," he said. "With you beside me. We'll rule together. Even the monster will fear us." A long silence followed. Then Elira spoke, her voice low and sharp. "You don't want a leader. You want a puppet." The high priest raised a hand. "You'll come willingly, or we'll take you in chains." Reed stepped forward. "No, you won't." The guards aimed their weapons. Reed turned to Elira. "We're not going back, not to cages, not to fear." She nodded. "Then we fight." The battle was fast and brutal. Reed lunged first, using the bone spear to knock a blaster from one guard's hand. Elira rolled behind another, grabbing his arm and slamming him into the wall. They moved like lightning, 2 against 6, but they had faced worse. A blaster fired, burning Reed's arm. He shouted in pain. Elira turned with fury and punched the attacker's throat. The guard dropped, gasping. She grabbed his weapon and aimed at the priest. "Tell them to stand down," she said, voice shaking. The high priest raised his hand, but not to surrender. He pressed a button on his robe. The wall behind him opened, and more guards entered. Too many. Reed pulled Elira close. "The lift, go!" She hesitated. "We'll never make it." "I'll hold them," he said. "You ride it up. Call help." "No," she said fiercely. "Not without you." But Reed shoved her toward the panel. "Elira, you gave me a reason to survive. Now let me give you one to lead." Tears filled her eyes. She nodded once. Then she ran. She dove into the lift, hit the panel, and the doors slammed shut. As it rose, She looked through the glass window. She saw Reed swinging his spear surrounded. Then the lift passed through the wall. She couldn't see anymore, but she could still hear his voice echoing in her mind. Don't let them take you again. When the lift stopped, Aelira stepped out onto the surface platform. Blue sky above. Real. Sunlight. Freedom. But she didn't smile. She looked around, found a comms terminal, and sent a distress signal to Sector Command, the human outpost orbiting Varos 9. Then she dropped to her knees. Reed was still down there, fighting for her. But what Aelira didn't know is that he wasn't dead. Not yet. The monster from the pit had risen, and for the first time, it wasn't hunting him. The sky above Varos 9 was clear for the first time in weeks, but Aelira felt no peace. She stood at the edge of the landing platform, staring toward the mountains where the pit lay buried. Her arms were scratched. Her mind racing. The human outpost had picked up her distress call. A team of medics offered help. Soldiers asked questions. A general even offered her asylum. But Aelira said nothing. Her heart was still chained to the man she left behind, to Reed. Deep below, in the crumbling tunnel, Reed's body lay beneath broken rock. He had fought until his legs gave out. His arm was burned. His face was bruised. He heard voices, but they were fading. Then, a sound shook the tunnel. Heavy. Slow. Alive. The monster was back. Reed groaned, trying to crawl, but his strength was gone. The monster stepped into view. Its massive head turned toward him. Its claws dragged over the stone floor. Reed closed his eyes. This is it. But the monster didn't strike. It stopped. It sniffed once, twice. Then it lowered its head and stood still. High above, Aelira sat in silence inside a small medical tent. The general returned. We're pulling out in 10 hours. Are you coming with us? She looked at him. What if I'm not done here? He frowned. You survived the pit. That's enough. No, she said. He saved me, and I left him. The general hesitated. We can't send more troops in there. It's unstable. Then I'll go alone, she replied. Before he could stop her, Aelira turned and walked out. She was no longer a girl tossed into a pit. She was the one climbing back into it. She reached the edge of the pit by nightfall. This time she carried real weapons, plasma knives, shock charges, climbing rope. But her strongest weapon was something else: conviction. She descended using the lift shaft. Darkness swallowed her. The hum of the walls returned. The pit was still breathing. At the bottom, she turned on her torch. The bone garden was quiet. But the monster's tracks were fresh. She followed them. Then she found him. Reed, lying on a broken stone slab, wrapped in torn cloth. Alive. His eyes opened, slowly. You came back. She knelt beside him. Of course I did. Then she froze. Just behind him, sitting still, was the monster. Its head tilted, watching. It didn't move, didn't growl, didn't attack. Reed whispered, It saved me. Aelira stared. What? It dragged me here. Didn't bite, didn't tear, it just watched. Aelira stepped forward carefully, and the monster bowed. The pieces clicked. She remembered what Reed once said. It hunts by sound, but it also remembered scent, and the only person who had ever touched it and lived was Aelira. She walked. Closer, heart pounding. The monster didn't flinch. It lowered its head again. This isn't just a beast, she whispered. It was made, programmed, but something broke, and now it thinks for itself. Reed coughed a laugh. You're telling me it has feelings? No, Aelira said. It has memory, and somehow, loyalty. They rested for hours, hidden, in a cave lit by bioluminescent moss. Aelira patched Reed's wounds and shared her plan. We don't run anymore, she said. We expose the high priest. We tell the galaxy about this. Reed smiled weakly. Sounds like a death wish. No, she said. Sounds like freedom. The next day they climbed again. But this time they weren't alone. The monster followed. It climbed the walls with them, its claws digging into stone, moving like it had a purpose. At the surface, guards tried to stop them, but when the creature emerged, roaring in rage, they scattered. No one dared stand between Aelira and the truth now. She stood on the edge of the village square, her voice loud, her words strong. You called me weak. You threw me into a pit. And when I survived, you tried to chain me again. She held up the old collar they had once locked around her neck, now broken. No more. Reed limped beside her. The monster stood behind them, silent, but powerful. And the people, they listened, because for the first time someone had come back from the pit not as prey but as power. The village of Drethkar had never been silent before, but now, no one spoke. Not the guards, not the elders, not even the high priest. They all stared at Aelira, standing proud, tall, no longer afraid. At her side stood Reed, limping, bloodied, but alive. And behind them, the monster. It stood at full height, 20 feet tall, bone plates gleaming, claws sunk deep into the dirt. But it didn't roar, it didn't strike. It waited, like it was listening, like it had chosen. Aelira raised her voice. You told us the pit was death. You told us sacrifices were necessary, that the monster demanded blood. She pointed toward the beast, but that was a lie. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Reed stood beside her, voice hoarse but steady. This creature was created, controlled, broken. You used it. You used us. Aelira stepped forward. And now your fear has come home. The high priest stepped out from the crowd, his robe glowing with threads of gold. He raised a hand. You dare speak like a leader. You were a cast-off, a failure. I was, Aelira said. Until you threw me away. That's where I became strong. The priest's voice rose. You don't belong here anymore. Aelira's eyes flashed. She pulled something from her belt, a data crystal. It glowed blue. Before I left the pit, I took this from the old control room. It holds the truth. Records, video, voice logs. She looked at the people. Every lie, every deal, every sacrifice that wasn't needed. The crowd began to whisper. The truth had claws sharper than the monster. Reed tossed a small device onto the ground. The crystal connected. A hologram flickered into the air. Images of the high priest speaking with off-world slavers, of selecting victims for the pit to maintain fear and control. People gasped. Mothers covered their children's ears. A few guards dropped their weapons. One even fell to his knees. The high priest screamed, "Liars!" He grabbed a spear and charged at Aelira, but the monster moved first. In one swift motion, it stepped between them and roared, a thunderous sound that cracked stone and split the air. The spear shattered in the priest's hand. He fell backward. Crawling in the dirt, begging, Aelira looked down at him. You made this creature a symbol of fear, but it remembered kindness. That's more than I can say for you. She turned away. The crowd surged forward. The guards didn't stop them this time. The people didn't scream for blood. They chose justice. The high priest was taken away, his voice fading into the wind. By evening, the village was changed. Old banners were burned. The pit was sealed. The chain collars melted down and repurposed into tools and lights. Aelira stood on the highest platform looking over the people. She wasn't wearing rags now. She wore a simple tunic, strong boots, and the scars of survival. Not royalty, not sacrifice, but leader. Reed joined her, a fresh bandage on his side. You know, he said, you could take a break. Aelira smiled. And miss the best part? He raised an eyebrow. The best part? She nodded toward the people. watching them choose for themselves. He chuckled. I never thought I'd follow an alien girl out of a pit. She looked at him. And I never thought a human would be the one to pull me up. They stood together, shoulder to shoulder. Later that night, Elira returned to the place where the monster stood. It was still, silent, half in the shadows. She approached slowly. You don't have to stay, she said. You're free now. The creature tilted its head. Then, for the first time, it turned and walked away, into the wild lands, into the unknown. It didn't look back, and she didn't call after it, because even monsters deserve freedom. Months later, people across the stars told the story of the girl thrown to die, of the human who stood beside her, and of the beast that was once feared, then remembered. They called it the rise from the pit, and they never forgot the lesson. Not all monsters are born. Some are made. But even they can choose peace.